in the sand. The ukulele man, the fireworks this 4th of July, and I ride home. I love the man beside me. We love the open road. No phones till Friday. Far from the overkill, far from the overload. Back at the bar, the band tears down, but out here in the headlight beams, the silver power lines gleam on this 4th of July night ride home. We round the curve and a big dark horse, red tail lights on his hide, is keeping right alongside. Rev for stride, 4th of July night ride home. I love the man beside me. We love the open road. No phones till Friday. Far from the overkill, far from the overload. Oh, once in a while, in a big blue moon, there comes a night like this, like some surrealist invented this 4th of July and night ride home.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Eindelijk is dan de tijd van de binneninterviews in muziektempels, in hotels en restaurants gelukkig voorbij. Kortom, we mogen naar buiten toe. En als voorproefje op een periode van maar liefst 4 maanden... waarin we onder de blote hemel zullen vertoeven, nu een interview met Joni Mitchell. Joni Mitchell heeft een carrière die al verder gaat dan 20 jaar. Van de folk in de jaren 60 naar de jazz en de rock in de jaren 70. En nu dan een heel evenwichtige LP, Chalkmark in a Rainstorm in de jaren 80. Waarin al die combinaties wel terug te vinden zijn. En bovendien een keur aan artiesten. Bijvoorbeeld Peter Gabriel, maar ook Willie Nelson, Tom Petty en vele anderen.
Joni, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice
Is
to be
it
here.
true that you dreamt of being a dancer?
That I dreamt of being a dancer? Well, in my teenage years, when rock and roll was first born, I loved to dance. Hand jive, you know,
Yeah.
the Lindy, partner dancing. I lived for that, and I instigated to put another dance on in the course of the school week so that we could have 3 dances a week instead of 2. No, I was a dancer, mostly in my teens, though. By my 20s, I became a stationary folk singer.
How did you get in touch with music?
As a child, I was creative. I was an artist. As a result of childhood illnesses and moving around a lot, I think I developed a strong interlife and a creative life. And it was difficult to find friends, creative children to play with. My best friend was kind of a piano protege, and I used to leap around the room and dance, and he would play complex Bach and Beethoven and Mozart pieces. We put on circuses together. I made the posters and nailed them to the trees, like our gang movies. You know, those old, we would put on circuses like that. So I was introduced first to classical music through him as a child. When rock and roll came in the early 50s, it moved your whole body, and I became a dancer. In my late teens, folk music arrived, and by that time I was beginning to think a little deeper. And also we had parties in the country, Wiener roast, beer parties. People would drink beer and roast hot dogs, you know, and tell jokes and sing bawdy songs. And so I thought, if I could learn to play the guitar, the party would be more fun. None of us played guitar. So I learned initially more to serve a function in my immediate group of friends than for any other reason. I think all your past becomes romantic. You know, you leave out the mundane pieces and remember only the color.
Still, you are considered as, especially in the 60s, a spokeswoman for a hippie generation.
Well,
Or is that too...
I'm not sure, you know,
too much
how I received that title. I think that I began to write intimately about my feelings at the time of my fourth album, and that those emotions found fertile ground in other people's unexpressed feelings. And so in a way, it could be said that I expressed the unexpressible. It was a very lonely time in America. It was strife-ridden, it was difficult. It was the end of America's naivety. We were the good guys up until then. We had a heroic reputation from the war, and suddenly there was trouble at home, beginning with the Kennedy assassination. The 60s were a very idealistic time for youth, very hopeful. We did believe that we could change the world. We found we couldn't change it very much at all.
During the 70s, according to critics, you committed a crime by leaving the folk thing and trying to evolve yourself, trying to find new things, and you made this album with Mingus, a jazz album. How did you change that much? And why did you change that much?
Well, I felt that music becomes very exciting and then very dull very shortly. And always needs new influences running into it, new tributaries in order to keep it alive. If you look at the evolution of music, boogie woogie turns into rock and roll.
Yeah.
Always like with a slight variation. So rock and roll turned into rock, white military. It lost the happy spirit, the sideways spirit of rock and roll. The roll fell off, right, during the angst of the 60s. I missed that spirit in the music and tried to put it back in a different way, drawing from African rhythms. It was a premature experiment. People thought that I had lost my marbles on the hissing of summer lawns, for instance. But I think in retrospect that there's a high level of creativity. I'm very pleased with the way it came out.
I deal in dreamers and telephone screamers. Lately I wonder what I do it for. If I had my way, I just walk through those doors and wander on the Champs-Élysées, going cafe to cabaret, thinking how I feel when I find that very good friend of mine. I was a free man in Paris, I felt unfettered and alive. There was nobody calling me up for favors, and no one's future to decide. I go back there tomorrow for the work I've taken on, stuck in the star maker machinery to find a popular song.
My first taste of the 80s as being a new decade was, I was passing through Bendel's in New York, which is a small department store. I caught a glimpse of myself in a mirror in passing, and I said, oh my God, I have to do something with my hair. So I went up to the top where there was a beauty salon. They cut my hair, they stuck me under the dryer, and while I was under there, into the room came a girl who looked remarkably like she'd stepped out of the 50s.
Yeah.
I said, God, look at that, I hadn't seen this 50s revisionary look. She had on black and white, what we called pedal pushers or toreador pants, leopard skin, a black scoop neck sweater, and a pixie cut, we used to call it, this little black short haircut, which I hadn't seen since the 50s either, and socks with her shoes, which was a 50s style. And she said to one of the hairdressers, I had so much fun last night at this party that I was at. He said, oh, what What did you do? She said, well, I went to the jukebox and I stood like this. And then I went to the kitchen and I stood by the fridge like this. And her whole description of what a good time she had was a series of postures in the 50s style all around the room of this party. To me, still is a symbol of what the 50s were, or the 80s were. The 50s revisional aspect of this decade was, while they knew the stances and the poses and the style, they didn't get the full flavor of what it was. It was a decade stylistically searching for its own identity, overwhelmed by many, 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 many periods, because suddenly on videotape and on record, everything was available. My generation, the films of our parents and the music of our parents died behind them. It was known to them, but not to us. But in the 80s, everything came back. Yeah. It must have been terribly confusing.
Zo, ik heb het voor elkaar. Joni Mitchell speelt speciaal voor jullie en voor mij één nummer akoestisch van haar laatste LP. Geen playback, puur akoestisch. Ah, there you are. Well, Joni, I've got a present for you. An album released some 3 weeks ago by a person who mentioned you, one of his biggest influences, and especially the history of the summer lawns, Prince.
Oh
there
my God, look at him.
This is his latest album. You haven't seen it yet.
No. That's great.
Do you hear certain parts from your music in his music?
Well, not as much as he does. At the playing of one of his albums, a few albums back, he invited me, and we were seated next to each other as the music played. And from time to time, I would comment and say, oh, I love that chord, or I love that progression. You know, where did you get that from? And he would say, from you. But I wouldn't recognize it, although I can hear my influence in Purple Rain, in the harmony. But I don't know if that's coming from him or Wendy and Lisa, because they've also assimilated some of the modality of the open tunings, you know. He says it's there. I hear a lot of Sly, and
Sly and the Family Stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear more Sly than me.
Yeah. You're gonna play a song as
Yeah,
well.
I'll play a couple of tunes.
Oh, tunes. Okay.
Number one, honey, tell me when your working day is done. Were you reaching for the iron, reaching to be number one? You get a car, you want a boat, you want an itty bitty miny moat. Oh, there must be more to living than a mortgage and a lot to mow. Sweaty work and lucky breaks, blood and tears is all it takes to be a winner. People cheer, people gasp, people want your autograph when you're a winner. Win and lose, win and lose. To the loser go the heart-sick blues. To the victor goes the spoiling. Honey, did you win or did you lose? Sweaty work and lucky breaks, blood and tears is all it takes to be a winner. People cheer, people gasp, people want your autograph when you're a winner. Steidinger? Will they shower you with flowers or will they shun you when your race is run? Will we shower you with flowers or will we shun you when your race is run? Will we shower you with flowers or will we shun you when your race is run? Got to be a winner, trophy winner. Get to hold your head up higher. Got to be a winner, trophy winner. Get to hold your head up higher. Got to be a winner, trophy winner. Get to hold your head up higher.